You're going to meet radio personality Monica Gallasch today, if you don't already know her. There will be laughs, there will be words of wisdom, and there will be cake. Delicious, miraculous, misunderstood, relabeled, and reimagined cake.
This is Signs of the Times Radio with Kent Kingston.
Well, it's absolutely fantastic to have with us here for the very first Signs of the Times Radio for 2019, the amazing, the fantastic Miss Monica Gallasch. How are you, Monica?
My word, I was looking around for this amazing, fantastic person because I'm like, surely they can't be talking about me. But yeah, I'm good. How are you, Kent?
I'm very well. Who else? Who else would it be? Look, if you're listening to us on Faith FM, you'll know Monica's voice well. She's a breakfast host, so you'll know her there. If you're listening on a podcast, well, hey, you are going to meet someone really fun. Monica Gallasch used to work with us here at Adventist Media, now working with Faith FM, radio station, all over Australia via 100 plus narrowcast stations plus on the net. Yeah,
man, you know more than I do.
Yeah, well, you just talk, huh?
I just turn up and talk. I didn't realize we were this much of a spread.
Oh yeah,
you're on us, I suppose. Praise the Lord.
Yeah, you're famous. You know what? You're famous, Monica.
I'm doing the interviewing, and I'm just suddenly realizing how much more nerve-wracking it is to be the interviewee. I should be a bit more gentle with the people we interview. This is terrifying.
Because you never know what they're going to ask next. Yes, that's true. That is very true. So, Monica, you are a woman of the people. You don't put on airs and graces, and you don't mind strapping on an apron and getting busy in the kitchen. You're a strong, independent woman with a spatula in your hand. Is this true?
Well, I mean, at the moment it is, but literally if I met a millionaire and he was like, honey, I want you to be a trophy wife, I would totes just strap the apron on for good and just be like a whiz at creating exotic. Seriously, it'd be like a paid job for me just to come up with different recipes in the kitchen. I'd be so happy with that.
Okay, there you go. Look, and any millionaires out there, young, dashing cosmopolitan?
Look, they have to be millionaires because I love buying exotic ingredients and that stuff gets expensive.
Look,
so,
anyone who owns their own house in Sydney these days is a millionaire. You realise that, don't you?
So true. Oh, dear. Do you own a house in Sydney, Ken?
No, I don't. And I'm also married.
I don't
so
think I know
sorry.
anyone who owns a house in Sydney.
Yep, sorry. Two strikes. Yeah, also married, don't own a house.
Yeah,
so.
No, sorry.
All right, but you wrote an incredible article for us, and look, you told me this story a while back, and I said that is amazing. You've got to write this down. This is incredible. It's called A Tale of Two Cakes. It was the best of cakes. It was the worst of cakes. How a baking disaster led me on a journey of self-discovery.
I remember when I gave the story to you, Kent, you actually called me and you were like, is this true? Did this really happen? And I was like, yeah, it did.
It's so cool. So look, we shouldn't keep people hanging any longer. We should sort of explain the story to them. But really, I mean, you do need to read the Jan-Feb edition of Signs of the Times to sort of get full value for, Monica's way with words, I'm telling you, listeners. But we're going to give you a bit of a sneak peek and a sort of, explore the depths of this story. Now, it all starts with this, and this is one of the things I had to edit, so I don't think you even spelt it right, a Thermomix. A Thermomix, and obviously a couple of years ago, this was huge. Like, everyone had to get a Thermomix. It was the food processor and oven and everything all in one, but you'd never used one until you used your mum's.
That's correct, yeah. And they're so techie. Like, it's one of those devices where you purchase one and literally have to take classes to figure out everything it does. I feel like it does pretty much everything in the kitchen. Yeah,
okay. And you're pretty accomplished in the kitchen. What's your sort of specialty? What sort of stuff do you like to do already? I mean, it's not like you're a complete noob.
Yeah, no, I love baking. I've been baking since a young age. But yeah, my parents are both German and we have a wonderful, rich history of baked goods. My mum has worked in catering and in cooking as far as I can remember. So I've grown up in that culture, in that environment. Yeah, the funny thing is I could bake a cake like a pro before I could even figure out how to wash and make a salad. And even to this day, a salad to me seems like a challenge where I could throw together a massive 3-tiered cake in no time. So
Oh, wow.
those are my cooking. Yeah.
You really need to come to our place and get my wife to knock you up a couple of her amazing gourmet salads. I'm telling you, it's
I'd love
crazy
that.
stuff like currants and like gently toasted walnuts and halloumi and my rocket.
Sounds amazing. See, a salad to me seems exotic, where cake is like just whatever. It's Tuesday, it's cake.
Okay, so Monica versus the Thermomix.
Yeah, yeah.
So
my mum has this Thermomix, and she loves it. Loves this thing. Knows how to do all the the whiz bang stuff on it. And I'd been asked to actually make a cake for a church function, and so I was like, oh, maybe I can give a crack at this Thermomix. And Mum suggested, I make a really quick sort of batter in it, because it's one of those things where you just shove everything in the bowl of it and you press go and off it goes. And so I stick all the ingredients in the bowl and then I put the lid on and I press on. And I'm used to my appliances taking a little bit of time to chow through a batter.
Yep. Okay. Well, let's just stop for a minute and go back a little. So you had the ambition of making a carrot cake. And so you picked this recipe that actually had pineapple and coconut in it, which sounds awesome.
I was getting adventurous. I was like, do you know what? Let's mix it up. Let's add like pineapple and coconut shards to this carrot cake and see what happens.
Nice. No, but very nice. I mean, look, I love carrot cake. It is one of my favorite cakes.
It's so good.
I mean, speaking of lightly toasted walnut, it's good to have a bit of walnut or a bit of pecan in there, or little shreds of carrot.
I disagree with you there. I don't like nuts in my carrot cake.
All right.
Yeah, I'm one of the nutless ones.
All right.
You're clearly one of the nutty ones.
I am. We'll have to agree to differ on that. But nevertheless, it's intended to sort of have bits and texture sort of going through it, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's the traditional carrot cake crumb. It's always a little chunkier. There's like bits and pieces in it. Sometimes, sultana, maybe like...
Oh, yeah.
Maybe sometimes even grated carrot, like really chunky carrot in and of itself. And I thought to myself, if I stick, chunks of pineapple and bits of coconut in there, this will be really great. Have these occasionally sweet bursts of pineapple.
Oh, yeah. Bit of sweetness, bit of a tropical vibe. Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah, exactly. Like a tropical sort of a carrot cake.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so back to the Thermomix. So you chuckle this in the Thermomix and say, go do your magic.
Yeah, and thinking it's going to take a few minutes. And so I actually ducked out of the room and went and took a little ladies' break, and I came back.
After washing your hands thoroughly?
Yeah, you know it, taking off my apron before, putting it back on after, and get back in the kitchen, and I cannot believe how powerful these Thermomixes are and how quickly they operate. I literally should have stood there and pressed play, so to speak, and counted to 3 and turned it off, because that would have been the right amount of time.
Wow.
Instead of leaving the room for like 3 minutes.
Okay. So what's the batter looking like at this point?
Like silk. It's as smooth as silk. It's perfectly aerated. It's just
right.
It's like honey. It's liquid. It's
like mousse, basically. If you've made mousse.
Yeah, mousse. That's the perfect description to what it was. I made carrot cake mousse out of the batter.
Yeah. All right. But nevertheless, you persisted and thought, oh well, it's the ingredients are right, the balance is right, so we'll chuck it in the oven and see what happens.
I figured it couldn't be that bad, right? Like, of all the things that can go wrong with cooking, overbeating or overblending something is usually like on the it's okay kind of a scale. Like we can still make it. So yeah, I bunged it in the oven, to bake. Thought it'd be fine.
Yep. Okay. And when you took it out and your family sort of had a go at it, what was the verdict?
Yeah. So my mum and dad and my brother, they became my guinea pigs, because I knew there was something a little bit off with it when it came out. I was like looking at it thinking, what, visually that's not quite how carrot cake looks. And so I cut them off a little edge and I gave them all a little slice, a little taste, and I asked them for a bit of a verdict. And yeah, so that it actually, their verdict gave me an idea, because they said, the texture is wrong. It does taste like a carrot cake. It has all those wonderful carrot cakey flavors, but it feels different in your mouth. It has the wrong mouth feel. They said this is denser, it's heavier, it's kind of more like mud cake.
Oh, I love mudcake,
Oh, who doesn't though?
particularly chocolate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not
Fudgy,
so
fudgy
much a
goodness.
fan on the caramel sort of mud cakes and the white chocolate mud cake, but a dark
They get a
chocolate
bit
mud
sweet,
cake,
don't they?
they do, yeah. It's a bit too sweet, but dark, yeah, I get that. But a carrot cake flavored mud cake, no, have not been there. Have not been there.
It doesn't sound very appetizing, does it?
It doesn't.
Carrot cake, mud cake.
No, yeah, carrot mud cake. Ugh.
Yeah, carrot mud cake. Yeah, I was going to say it doesn't even work as a name.
No, it doesn't. So you had been planning to take this thing to church. Was it one of those potluck things? Was it where everyone brings food and everyone shares, and of course everyone
Yes, and it was
looking
kind
at
of a special
who made
event
this,
as
who
well.
made that? Oh, okay.
Yeah. We always had potluck, but this time was a special occasion because it was like once a month they would have one Sabbath lunch or one church lunch where they would do
Yeah.
the birthdays.
Uh-huh.
So everybody's birthday in that 1 month would be celebrated on the one afternoon at church all together. And they'd
Wow.
all be called up the front. We would sing happy birthday. So which is great because once a month there's a massive birthday cake. And this time it was my turn to make the
Oh,
birthday.
heck. So yours just wasn't one of the offerings on the dessert table. Yours was supposed to
No.
be the main deal.
Yeah, mine's the centerpiece essentially. And this is supposed to be like 5 different people's birthday cake all rolled into one.
So what did you do? Like whip up another one in a hurry that was right?
Oh, no time for that. No time for that. I mean, it would have been a waste of cake because, I mean, the cake was still edible, right? So
Mhm.
I had to come up with a game plan.
Yep.
And I had to think to myself, I had to take into consideration what my family had said about it. I was like, I can't really change the way the cake, looks or the way that it tastes or this texture problem or the way it has a mouthfeel. I can't unbake this cake. Like
Yep.
this thing is now set in stone.
Hopefully it
And I
wasn't that
realised-
hard, but hopefully it was moister than that.
Yeah, much more stuff. But I realized the only thing that I can change about this cake is the perception with which people approach this cake.
Right.
And if I can change their perception, I could change the experience they have about this cake.
Right. Okay. So
Yeah.
so your family guinea pigs had actually said it tastes okay. They didn't mind the taste.
Yeah, well, they said the flavor was great, but because of the texture, they decided they didn't actually like it.
Right. And they knew what it was supposed to be. Of course, they knew it was supposed to be a carrot
and that's
cake.
the problem of expectation. As soon as you have expectation, like you're setting yourself up for a fail. So if you remove the expectation, if I had not said what it was, they might have had a different experience.
Right. Okay.
Mm.
So
So I took a gamble on that.
yeah. And did what? Well, what was the solution? Because like you say, you can't unbake the cake. You can't unscramble the eggs, as they say.
Yeah, that's right. But what I can do is rename a cake.
Right.
So instead of calling it a carrot cake, I actually called it a Caribbean mud cake.
Ooh.
And yeah. And so I took it to church and I started advertising it to anyone who would listen that I had made a Caribbean mud cake. So people were like, oh, this is amazing. Did you make the birthday cake? I'm like, yeah. It's a Caribbean mud cake.
They go, oh,
Did
never
you
heard
make
of that before. That sounds
Yeah.
interesting.
Exactly.
Can't wait
They
to
were
try that.
Wow. And so anyone who would listen, I'd be like, did you check out my Caribbean mud cake that I brought? Make sure you get a slice of my Caribbean mud cake. And so
Wow.
just make sure.
What did you do for icing, by the way? Because, I mean, did you change the icing based on this new label or?
No, so I still stuck on the traditional cream cheese frosting, the everyone's favorite frosting, everyone's favorite icing is obviously carrot cake icing. So I stuck that on there and then just shoved some candles on because the icing is white.
So you didn't even change the icing. I mean, you could have gone something with sort of lemony and coconutty and to sort of try to head it in a more, Caribbean direction, but you went, nah. I'll just stick with the same carrot cake icing.
Perfectly, Ken. I don't need to change the flavors. So,
No.
I just shoved the candles on it and off it went. It was
So all you changed was the name, Caribbean Mudcake. That's it. Well,
all I changed was the name, nothing else. I made sure no one mentioned the word carrot cake. I made sure that when people asked me what was in it, I didn't say carrots because I'd immediately go, oh, so it's a carrot cake.
Yeah.
I didn't mention anything. I'd be like, oh, yeah, it's got like pineapple and coconut, that kind of thing.
So your family was
Never
sworn to
mentioned
secrecy
carrot.
at this point, I imagine. Do not breathe the word carrot cake.
Yeah, under threat of death. Because it was Kent, you have to understand, this thing was huge. Like, if it was going to be a flop, I was going to have a lot of leftover cake. This cake was like a slab. It was huge.
Okay, so when it gets to lunchtime and the long-awaited centerpiece birthday cake comes out, oh, you must have been cringing. What?
Yeah, I mean,
what was the response?
I've really hyped it. Like I've been such a hype man for my own cake, just as a sort of way to, to keep control of people's perceptions and to sort of make sure it's not going to be a total flop. So people were like super looking forward to this cake now.
Wow.
And and so that they sliced it up, served it out, and they absolutely loved it.
Well,
Lost their minds over it. It was hilarious, Ken. I couldn't believe I got away with it. I couldn't believe I'd gotten away with it. I was so smug. I wasn't the cat that got the cream. I was the cat that cornered the cream market. I just felt so great about it.
Oh, that is fantastic. But the thing I love about it is that you didn't say, oh, well, that was a funny episode. That was hilarious. I'll sort of put that one up to experience and never overblend with the Thermomix again. Instead, you decided to take it to the next level. Well, I think there were people who actually pushed you to the next level, weren't there?
Yeah. I was going to milk that sucker for all it was worth, because as far as other people were concerned, I had just invented a new cake. And and people came up to me and at church, and they were like, this is the best cake I've ever eaten. And I had one guy ask me if I would make it for his birthday party. I had another girl ask me to make it for her wedding cake.
Oh, my goodness.
I know, right? And to them, it was just the most exotic, tantalizing thing they'd ever had. It's absolutely astounding to me that they couldn't figure out that it was just carrot cake.
Oh, this just it really cracks me up. And but the thing that cracks me up even more is that you really did take it to the next level, and you have to take complete responsibility for this, because no
100%.
No one pushed you to do this. You decided to enter it into a cake competition, right? Well, what was this? Was this like an agricultural show or a community hall thing, or like what was the go?
Yeah, so it was up in Windsor in Sydney. They have this annual cake baking contest, and people from the community can enter. It is a fairly widespread competition, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna see how long I can run with this thing, and I'm gonna enter my Caribbean mud cake in this cake baking competition. And so I did it again. I over blended this time on purpose, the cake, and this time I cut it into the shape of a pineapple to further cement the perception of Caribbean.
But same recipe, same icing.
Same everything, same. Well, this time I did colour the icing to sort of match a pineapple's colours.
Oh, okay.
I made it yellow, and then I did the sort of little pattern of a pineapple on the sides, and then on the top I actually got a real pineapple and chopped the top of it off, and then stuck a skewer through it, and then skewered the top of the green part into the cake, so it really looked like an upstanding pineapple. It was so cute. I wish you could have seen it.
Oh, cool! Wow, no, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
But same recipe, same icing. It's
same everything.
It's an overmixed carrot cake.
It's an overmixed carrot cake.
You have hired, Monica Gallasch. I've got to say, you have hired.
I got a lot of sass, is what I got.
You got a lot of sass. So how did the grand judges of the Windsor cake competition take to your Caribbean mud cake, in inverted commas?
Kent, I won first place. It was such a cake fail that came back as a winner. It was the underdog of cake.
Honestly, do they not realise they're just encouraging you? I mean, come on.
Oh, it was so much fun. It actually took a beating to my belief in judges, because these are people who go around tasting cakes professionally as they're asked to judge at royal shows and Easter shows and this kind of thing. And I'm like, how are their taste buds not telling them, alert, this is just carrot cake? They couldn't figure it out. Carrot cake is that thing's as old as the hills. The flavours of carrot cake, just how do they not recognise it, Ken? It still boggles my mind. I had them coming up to me afterwards and be like, are you sure there's not chocolate in this? It's so rich and decadent. I don't understand how you made this without using chocolate. And I'm like, trust me, there's no chocolate in this. That was great.
Oh, that is fantastic. Oh, my goodness. So, so at this point, I guess you're poised to take over the world by just renaming and reclaiming stuff, and
That's it.
yep.
It was like I'd found some sort of perception altering superpower, and
Yep.
I was like, I could take over the world with this.
Yep.
All you have to do is change people's perceptions, and then you can like basically control their experience and the outcome. Like at that church, I totally controlled their experience they were having with this cake simply by altering their perception. Like it boggled my mind that I could be, I
Yep.
guess, this easily manipulative.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous power, but this
It is.
yeah, this has sort of got you thinking, hasn't it? Just about broader issues about perception in general. Like how can you sort of take this lesson that you've learned the very, very easy way from your Caribbean Mudcake and applied it more broadly to life and relationships and life, the universe, and everything, I guess.
Yeah, so I did spend a lot of time thinking about it just because I marveled at just the occurrence, both of them, the church and the competition. And in sort of like, having my little despotic moment, I sort of realized rather than running around trying to alter other people's perceptions, I should probably work on my own perception. And I actually had an experience that sort of drove that home for me at a party one night. And I had gone to the party with a good friend of mine. And while we were there, we ran into an old friend from school. He was now married and they had a little baby, and him and his new wife and baby were all there at the party. My friend and I sat around with him and we were like, just having a great time, joking, catching up, those, the good old times, just those in stories. And his wife, she would every now and then just, come into the room a little bit and just stand over, his shoulder and sort of, chuckle along a little bit half-heartedly, and then would go back to looking after the baby and come in and out. And I sort of perceived that she was surly and not too happy with us being there. And afterwards, I did say to my friend, this woman was like just so threatened by us. She was just had this aura of like, he's my husband and we should back off and, go find our own husbands kind of a thing. Because my friend and I are single.
Yep.
And I had a really rebuking experience because my friend turned to me and she's like, what are you talking about? I didn't see that at all. I saw a young mum who was clearly, very tired and exhausted, and she was basically being left out of the conversation that the rest of us were having.
Yeah.
Conversation that was, these sort of you had to be there kind of stories and stories that she had no clue as to what we were even talking about half the time. And she's trying to join in and trying to be involved in her husband's life, but also at the same time trying to look after her baby. And
juggling.
I felt terrible. I was like, I was looking at this woman. And instead of seeing, for example, instead of seeing an award-winning Caribbean mudcake, I just saw, a failed over-blended carrot cake. Yeah,
yeah. Wow. So it can make a lot of difference, can't it, to, I guess, think the best of people rather than the worst of them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And your perception is actually the easiest one to change.
Your own perception, yeah.
That's it.
Wow, far out. It's it's interesting. Like when you read through the Bible, there are a number of people who had name changes. Like I think of Saul, for example, whose name became Paul, or Abram became Abraham, or Sarai became Sarah. And it sort of seems that like these name changes, your cake had a name change, but there are times in the Bible when people had name changes, and it seemed to sort of mark a significant shift in who they were and maybe even how they perceive themselves. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I didn't even think about the name changes in the Bible. That's incredible to think about it. Maybe, because often God was involved with the name changing.
Yeah.
Maybe he was telling them, I want you to see yourself as I see you, not as how you've seen yourself or how others around you have seen you. Take a look at yourself through my eyes and be encouraged. And here's the name that I would give you.
Wow.
Isn't that good? Yeah, that's incredible.
And in fact, I think in Revelation, a couple of times it even talks about, I think in chapter 3, there's a couple of times where it talks about this white stone which has a name written on, like for each of us. It's like a new name that God is given us that I guess won't be revealed until we get to heaven. And he says, hey, this is your new name. So it's, I guess, suggests that there's a transformation sort of in the offing, there's something being promised to us that, hey, you'll be changed in the twinkling of an eye, as the Apostle Paul says, and this mortal will put on immortality. And so it's almost like God saying, hey, I've got a new name and a completely incredible transformation like waiting for you, just by symbolizing that with this new name that he offers in Revelation.
Absolutely. And I can't wait to find out what my new name is. But I think something that we need to keep in mind is that we don't actually have to wait for heaven to see ourselves the way that God sees us. We don't have to wait to be given any white stone. While yes, that will happen at the end, we can start with changing our perception now. And there's plenty of stories in the Bible of these Bible characters who doubted themselves, who saw themselves as failed cakes, and God said, "No, you're so much more." I mean, look at Gideon.
Yeah,
Gideon was just, he didn't think of himself as anything. He definitely would never have thought himself as any sort of award-winning Caribbean mudcake.
Yeah, I think he was the youngest son in a very not very important clan of a not very important tribe, and he was actually quite chicken. His whole country was being invaded by and oppressed by these Midianite overlords, and he's just like chickening out, hiding in a wine press somewhere, like treading out some grain. I mean, the Midianites used to steal all the grain, so basically any grain you could thresh and hold in private, you sort of put it on the floorboards and don't tell anyone. So he's this chicken, Gideon, and then this angel suddenly appears to him and says, "Hey, you mighty man of valor," and he's like looking around, like
me?
who me? Yeah. So yeah, but God sort of gives him this name. You're a mighty man of valor. Identifies him as something that it's almost like God could see what he could be rather than what he currently was. Which is pretty amazing. And if you follow the story, you read it in the book of Judges, there you'll see he did become a mighty warrior and a mighty man of valor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He became a hero in a time of war when that was needed. So yeah, he really rose to the occasion. He never would have suspected himself as being capable, and God saw it. God gave him the power to do it, and he did it. It's an incredible story.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. So when it comes to you, like organizing your relationships and meeting people and stuff, how has this whole Caribbean mudcake experience coloured your views and perhaps changed the way you see people or relate to them?
Yeah, so I actually use this story to remind myself, because I genuinely think that mental health has a lot to do with preventing mental health has a lot to do with positivity, and I think if we don't assume the worst or don't assume just the most negative or anything ever negative about other people, we have got a long way of keeping ourselves positive and having a positive outlook. And so with this whole perception thing with the two different cakes, it's a really wonderful reminder that we can be like a little bit more generous, and we can be a bit more gentle with how we treat other people, how we view them. I try and let my perception of others be as generous and as gentle as possible. I guess until proven otherwise.
Yeah.
And that goes a long way to keeping me happy. Like, you'd think this is something you do to keep other people happy, but it actually helps you keep happy. If you don't always assume the worst about people, if you try and just believe the best of others.
Yeah. I mean, look, people will let you down. People will hurt you. But if you go around, if you go around your whole life just sort of cringing and waiting for people to be horrible to you, what a miserable way to exist. I mean, I totally see what you're saying. Yeah, approach people positively, and the other thing is, a lot of the time they will respond positively if you approach them positively.
Yeah, and I guess it's a reminder that things aren't always what they seem, because when we look at things, we interject our own experiences, we interject who we are into our perception.
Oh, totally.
And so yeah, when you and I look at the same cake, you might see something completely different, and I might see something completely different to you. And then not just cake, but anything in life. So it's a gentle reminder, to just be aware that perception plays such a huge part in our life.
Wow. Hey, thanks so much, Monica. I really appreciate you sharing your story with us, both in print in the magazine and on the radio show / podcast. Thanks so much for being a part of Signs of the Times Radio today.
No worries. Thank you.
Today's episode was based on an article appearing in this month's Signs of the Times magazine. A subscription is just $26 for 11 issues a year. To find out more, visit signsofthetimes.org.au. Signs of the Times has been published in Australia since 1886 and is proudly produced by Adventist Media.
This is an Adventist Media podcast.